family. They love the family, they love me. Film with family. They love their family, love the movies. Film with family. Two cousins, Austin and Zach. Film with family. Film with family. Hello, and welcome to Film with Family. I'm Zach.
And I'm Austin.
And we are two cousins who like to talk about movies.
Scary movies.
Yes, that's right. It's horror month. Welcome to October.
Welcome to October, folks. It's spooky season officially.
And I want to thank our cousin Troy for giving us that new spooky theme song. Great job,
Yes,
Troy.
It's very scary.
When he first sent it to me, I was like, I had to stop it halfway through. I was like, this is too scary. So this is, we thought it'd be fun for the month of October to do a bunch of scary movies, bunch of horror movies, as people call it.
They do call it that, yeah.
And we're gonna cover it all, from the scary to the horrific. We're gonna everything in between. We're gonna cover it this month.
From the gory to the gruesome. But today, we're going to be, easing into it a little bit. Trying to kind of set the mood.
Yeah.
With some ambient experimental horror. Kind of an odd way to start. There probably aren't too many people listening right now who have even seen these movies. But we're going to be talking about some modern experimental horror films.
Yes. Don't worry, we'll get to the classics later in the month. But
yeah.
What kind of spurred this on was this movie, ENYS MEN.
Not really.
ENYS MEN.
ENYS MEN.
ENYS MEN. I've heard it pronounced different ways, but I think I heard the director call it ENYS MEN.
Yeah. And he's like a Cornwall guy. It's very British.
Mark Jenkin.
Yes. And Austin, you're the one that saw this movie.
I did.
Earlier this year in theaters, I believe.
Yeah, so I think this movie came out in the springtime this year, around March, April 2023.
Yeah.
And it was being advertised and shown at the Music Box, and I was definitely intrigued by the trailer. I actually, when I went to go see Smoking Causes Coughing, I went with my really good friend Blake, and we saw that it was playing in the main theater. And so we kind of like peeked through and we were like, oh, that looks weird. And I remember it being described, I don't know if by Music Box or where this description came from, as The Shining in the Woods. And so my friend Blake said, why don't we go see this movie for my birthday? And I was like, okay. I mean, I think it's kind of experimental. I don't really know what to expect, but yeah, let's go see it. And so he invited about like 15 people to go see
Whoa.
this movie. And maybe 10 or 12 of us showed up at the music box all together, nobody really knowing what to expect. And it was playing in the smaller theater, which only has about 100 seats, maybe less. And so we basically filled the theater, and it was all of us like kind of like, woo, birthday time.
Hmm.
And the movie starts, and about 20 minutes in, everyone's just kind of looking back and forth at each other like, what the hell are we watching right now?
Yeah.
Because this movie is extremely repetitive, very slow. It's
Hmm.
not in any way a conventional film at all.
Yes.
It's basically this woman who's a volunteer researching rare flowers and recording her findings on this island in Cornwall by herself. And so the first hour basically is her just walking back and forth to this one little spot, going back to her house, making some tea, and writing in her journal about what she saw, which most of the time is nothing. So she just writes no change over and over.
Yeah. She also takes the temperature though too.
Yes, don't forget that. Yeah.
The date and the temperature, no change.
Yes. So, anyways, it was a very strange, considering that our tradition with Blake's birthdays up till this point, we're seeing the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh yeah.
So, like, super exciting, super like blockbuster, stupid. Like we'd all get drunk and like go see a Fast and Furious movie. And then we show up to ENYS Men. It was like the slowest thing. And so everybody walked out being like, what the hell was that? And most of us kind of frustrated, a little bored, a little
Yeah.
feeling sleepy.
Yeah, it's not a movie that's gonna hype you up, especially for a birthday.
Yeah.
That was a miscalculation there.
Yeah. But Blake loved it. So we were like, all right.
The birthday boy got what he wanted.
Exactly. I walked away from the movie being like, man, that was really boring. I wasn't scared. I fell asleep like 3 or 4 times. Didn't like it. But as time went on, this movie kind of burrowed itself into my brain.
And that kind of, when we were up in McGregor Bay, it kind of spawned this idea to make a parody kind of film.
Yes, Bainisman. I was just looking around and I was like, oh, this reminds me of Ennisman.
Yeah, because we're on an island.
Yeah. And so you, having not seen it, did a little interpretation of it.
Yeah, I had seen the trailer and I thought the trailer was really good. And I did want to see this movie in theaters, but I just kind of missed the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard from you and my buddy Wes that it was pretty boring. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, all right, I guess I can wait till this hits streaming.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was definitely interesting to when we were up in the bay filming this parody of this movie I haven't seen, and just like kind of trusting you that like, oh, this is kind of what the movie was like.
Mm-hmm. And now having seen it, how do you think we did?
I think there's definitely some similarities. We definitely found some ways that we made it our own.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we definitely captured the repetitiveness of it. But Banus is it's its own beast.
Yeah.
We're not trying to do a shot for shot recreation. It was
Yeah.
just like taking inspiration from this weird ambient folk horror movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to play Banus himself, which was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Stay tuned for that coming out, hopefully by the end of this month. I don't want to reveal too much before the video comes out. I think that it's good that we're doing this first though, so that people can kind of get an idea of what we were going for before seeing it.
Mhm.
So if you want to see ENYS Men, it's on Hulu right now. You could watch it with
Yes.
ads, which is very odd.
Oh, that's how what you did.
Well, the version of Hulu that I have apparently has ads embedded in it. It's like a cheaper version or something. So
Okay.
there's three ads like in the first 45 minutes or something,
Hmm.
which was
Jarring.
yeah, broke up the tension a lot. So how would you describe this movie? And what was your experience for seeing it?
Yeah, I just watched it last night on the great streaming service Hulu. I I pay for the higher end of it, so I didn't get any ads, which was appreciated. I was like watching something with my housemate Kenny, and then like he like kind of fell asleep at the in the middle of that. So like I like just threw on Enos Men while he was asleep, and he kind of woke up to like this strange movie at some point. He would just like watch it, and like some like minute thing would happen and be like, oh, the plot thickens. So, yeah, there is really no plot to this movie.
Hmm.
It's all vibes.
Hmm.
Describing it as ambient is pretty accurate.
Yeah. What would you say happens?
I mean, it all feels like it's this kind of psychological kind of just like feels like there's ghosts on the island,
Hmm.
but they're not like classic like see-through floaty ghosts. They just like look like people.
Yeah.
But there's like that rock monument
Hmm.
statue in the middle of the island
Hmm.
that I think's supposed to symbolize like grief or like people that were like lost at sea or something.
Mm.
I think you overhear that on the radio.
Oh, okay.
There's like some background radio noise when she's like in her house that's like talking about the statue,
Right.
and yeah, how it's like a symbol of like for grieving and
Hmm.
death kind of thing.
Hmm.
So it did make me think like, oh, these images of like nuns or something and miners,
Hmm.
like they just like they feel like they're kind of like ghosts that are
Hmm.
kind of haunting this woman a bit. And then you see this young woman and like dressed in blue, and she's like kind of hanging out at her house too.
Yeah, and you don't know if it's like a ghost of her daughter or if it's her younger self, because she's supposed to be alone on this island in this cabin, and then every once in a while, like this girl shows up or this man shows up who you assume like they had some sort of a relationship with, because like they're just like talking or dance. There's a really funny dance sequence
Oh yeah, I
with
like
them.
that slow-mo dancing.
Yeah. So it's just kind of a series of snapshots of this woman's life on like an island, but
Yeah.
then slowly her reality starts to shift.
Yeah, I guess the big development is the flowers she's investigating start growing lichen on it. Then she like writes in a notebook, lichen appears on the flower or something like that.
Hmm.
And then it just continues to be more lichen on the flowers. And then lichen starts growing on the scar that she has across her stomach, kind of like little body horror, kind of growing lichen on yourself. Yeah, and she like kind of like sees herself at some points. Like she'll be looking off and like sees herself like on a boat or up a hill or something. So that kind of fucks with her head and fucks with the audience a little bit.
What are the scary moments of this movie? Like, what were you ever scared?
No, that's probably my biggest complaint is that it's kind of billing itself as a horror movie, but I don't think it's scary at all.
Yeah,
That's just kind of weird.
yeah. It just feels more like an experimental film.
There's some suspense to it, but I wouldn't call it horror
Yeah,
necessarily. I don't know.
there's like a foreboding atmosphere to it, like something is going to happen, but nothing really does.
I mean, there is like a drowned like guy at one point, so like somebody kind of like they pull up like a guy that's drowned out of the water,
Yeah,
and it's like, who is this person? Is this like her husband or something? Or I don't know.
yeah. or like that girl falls through a glass ceiling. She like cuts her hand at one point. She burns her hand at one point.
Yeah, she puts her hand on the oven stove, which was giving me some Asteroid City flashbacks when Jason Schwartzman does that with the sandwich girl.
Yeah.
So why'd you do that? But yeah, definitely the like seeing the girl in blue like crash through the window, then like her like belly's like slashed open. It made me be like, oh, okay, so this is herself when she was younger, and that's how she got the scar
Right.
on her stomach. So that felt like, oh, there's like some answer there.
Mm-hmm.
That felt kind of clear to me, but everything else is pretty ambiguous.
Yeah. And the film was shot by the director, Mark Jenkin, on a Bolex 16 millimeter camera. So there's no natural sound. All of the sound is Foley and ADR,
Mm-hmm.
which I think makes it a pleasant thing to listen to.
Do you like it here on your own?
I'm not on my own.
There's one thing I wonder if you caught this. There's like some coughing sound effects in the background. I think it's the sound effect that Black Sabbath uses.
Oh, Sweet Leaf.
Yeah, in the beginning of Sweet Leaf, like where it's like that.
Yeah.
Like it is that sound effect.
Yeah, it's like royalty free cough sound, like the
Yeah,
Wilhelm scream.
exactly. But I was like, that sounds like the Black Sabbath cough.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, yeah, I didn't watch it on headphones, but I could see how like yeah, you could pick up on stuff like that if you're listening on headphones. I do like the actress they get for it,
Mm-hmm.
Mary Woodvine. She's got a very interesting face.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a middle-aged woman, got some wrinkles to her.
Mm-hmm.
I did like her performance in this movie, and it kind of kept
Yeah.
me engaged, even though the movie's not giving you very much at all. But just an interesting actress to watch,
Yeah.
and I feel like she holds the screen well, which a movie like this kind of needs. So I wanted to give her props.
She definitely does a good job, and especially since the director didn't really give her much direction, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have that video? There's like a video of him talking about his directing style in this movie. Could you pull that up?
Oh, I got it. I got it right here, baby.
I give the actors very little to work with other than the script, and then they bring themselves to it, so the characters become 50% them and 50% me. They can ask me questions, and I may or may not answer them.
And then often when I did ask him questions, he'd go, I'm not going to tell you. What do you think? So that was always really tricky. As an actor, I like to be told what to do, and he's often trying to draw the performance from me. So sometimes he would say, I don't know, I do know, I'm not going to tell you, or you work that one out for yourself.
If I think they need an answer, then I'll give them an answer, but quite often I'll want them to be kind of confused about what they are and where they're going, because I think that's pretty much the human condition.
It's funny because you took on this directorial style while we were making Batisman. I don't know if that was a conscious decision to be like Mark Jenkins or whatever, but when I would ask you like, so what should I be doing in this scene, or how should I be feeling? You'd be like, I don't know, you're Banus.
Yeah, I definitely I handed the reins over to you for your performance.
I just like kind of made the Banus character more like a Neanderthal as it went on.
Yeah.
Becoming like a caveman was kind of my natural inclination, and you supported that.
Yes. It's just our interpretation of ENYS Men. It's just trying to take the essence of ENYS.
And it was very easy to do. But yeah, I would say aesthetically, I did really enjoy this movie. I think it looks great. I love the kind of 70s film graininess of it. The colors pop really well, like the red of the flower, and like her red rain jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of like bright blues in her kitchen. It's kind of working in this like red and blue color palette. And I really liked all that stuff. She's got the bright red like generator that she keeps fucking with. I was really enjoying all that aesthetically. I thought it just looked great. So
Yeah.
from that standpoint, I was enjoying the movie, and I did agree that's like this is kind of cozy. And when I was trying to scare me, it just felt kind of goofy more than scary.
Yeah. I feel like most experimental films usually have some unnerving aspect to them. You don't really see too many experimental films that like make you feel good. You know, like they're
Yeah.
all kind of eerie, weird, make you feel like what am I watching?
Yeah.
So I don't think that you can really categorize it as a horror, which makes it very odd that we chose this as the first thing to talk about in horror month. It's like, I don't even think this is scary.
Yeah, it is labeled as like kind of like a folk horror movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think it is interesting to kind of talk about this new kind of genre of
Mm-hmm.
the kind of ambient horror,
Mm-hmm.
which yeah, also SkinaMARINK, which
Mm-hmm.
we thought we would talk about as well in this episode. You know, that also came out this year. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's another example of just this kind of ambient experimental horror movie with like kind of non-narrative, not much
Mm-hmm.
dialogue at all, just like ENYS Men. It's just like it's a vibes horror movie.
In this house. In this house.
Yeah. SkinaMARINK by Kyle Edward Ball. He had a YouTube channel called Bite Sized Nightmares. They're little 3-minute shorts that are very much in the style of SkinaMARINK, in
Hmm.
that they're just like these kind of shots of a house, like under a bed or a closet or a door or a ceiling or a wall or a TV, things like that. But I thought his approach to these videos was kind of interesting. He was reading on the internet just different people's stories of like nightmares they had as a kid, and he would basically try to interpret those as a short film. So he would read what their nightmares were with this imagery, and then kind of try to make the sounds or the imagery that they were seeing in the nightmare, and yeah, all the while reading their actual account of their nightmare, which is pretty creepy if you watch them. Have you seen any of them?
No, I don't think I've watched any of his YouTube.
Let's watch one really quick just so you can see the similarity. So this one's called Nightmare 2 Sound in the Hall.
This video is based on a comment user Trivy left on the subreddit Short Horror about a nightmare they had. I would be lying in bed and I would just hear this. And then there would just be silence, as if whatever it is standing there waiting for me to make a sound so that it knows I'm there and I'm not asleep.
Very, very SkinaMARINK.
I mean, basically during all of that, all you're seeing is kind of a bedroom door and like kind of the cracks in the bedroom door and the light coming through. And it's all got this kind of like blue tint to it.
Yeah, and the way he composes his shots, like everything's kind of feels like it's off axis a little bit, or I don't know, it just like feels like something kind of unnerving about the way he frames these shots.
It's definitely like in the vein of the creepypasta videos. Have you seen any of these?
I haven't seen any of those, though. I know kind of that one movie, We're All Going to the World's Fair, is kind of playing off that whole phenomenon.
Yeah, like Slender Man is in that vein. And I was just doing a little research on it, and I found this one creepypasta story called Ben Drowned. Do you know about that one?
No.
So it's like a story about a kid who goes to a yard sale and finds like an old video game. And I think it's Legend of Zelda, the Mask of
Majora's Mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Majora's Mask, yeah. So yeah, he finds The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask, and basically opens it up, and it keeps like showing him this creepy Link figure and saying like you've found a terrible fate. And like the video game is like really off and weird, and you keep hearing like these like it's supposed to drive the person who got it crazy, that like they are playing this video game that's like from their past, but it's like not like they remembered it at all.
Nice.
And I guess you can watch kind of the interpretation of the story online. So like you can kind of watch it from the perspective of the person who's playing the video game, and it is very creepy.
Yeah, Majora's Mask is it's like the creepiest of the Zelda games. It feels like almost a horror game, so that's kind of a cool choice to amplify that.
Yeah.
Make it even creepier than it already is.
Yeah, but so I think this movie definitely follows in those footsteps of just kind of taking you to a nightmare place or a dream place that is fragments of a memory that you as the viewer can kind of relate to in a way. When you think of like the images of your childhood, there's no story to it. It's very nonlinear. You think of like something in the distance that like doesn't have a description, or something that's too close and out of focus, or a nightmare that you had, or just like, just little snapshots, a door, a ceiling, your parents, like maybe sometime you fell down and hurt yourself or something like that. It's just like these little spotty fragments. And I think that SkinaMARINK does a good job of kind of taking you to that place.
Yeah, because the only characters are just like these two kids basically in the middle of the night in their house. And you don't really get a good clear shot of the kids. You kind of mostly see them from behind. And yeah, it definitely just taps into that feeling when you're a kid, and if you ever have a nightmare when you're a kid, and you just wake up in the middle of the night at this dark house, which is like also feels scary, but then you're like too scared to want to go back to sleep. Yeah, in this movie, like the parents aren't around really, or like they kind of pop up like randomly, but like they're kind of like the kids are just by themselves in this house, so they like got no one to really comfort them. And yeah, I feel like everybody can relate to that a little bit. Everybody's had like a nightmare when they're a kid, and then you're just like kind of stuck in your house in the middle of the night, and you're just like freaked out. You don't want to go back to sleep, and you're like, fuck, I just wish it would just be daytime, and I wouldn't be in this hell anymore. And this movie kind of captures that feeling. And that's why I thought it was good.
Yeah, you liked it. You saw it in the theater, right?
Yeah, we kind of had flipped experiences in that. I saw this movie in the theater many months ago, or earlier this year. I think it kind of came out around January or something of this year. It's very early. Technically a 2022 movie, but I guess it came out this year in theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw this with my buddies. My buddy Wes had already seen it, like leaked online somewhere, I think, and then he really liked it. And yeah, me and my other buddies Scott and Johnny also saw it. But me and Wes thought it was great. My buddies Scott and Johnny did not like it as much. They were kind of frustrated by how boring it is, and not really having a clear story to follow. But I thought it was great. We smoked weed beforehand, and I was at the perfect level of being stoned for it. It really washed over me, and the theater is kind of almost calming. Every now and then, like something will just like really unsettle you, I don't know. I never had a theater going experience like this movie.
Yeah.
And I was really vibing with it. I really like the film grain, the graininess. I think looks
Yeah.
really good the way.
Extremely grainy.
Yeah.
Like the grainiest film you will ever see.
Yeah. And I was loving that. And I love the sound of it. Movie, there's like this constant white noise or brown noise.
Hmm.
That's just like as like a bed for this entire movie, which I also was really enjoying, which kind of put me in this meditative kind of altered state.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to gets increasingly more freaky near the end of it. I was like really invested and freaked out and thought
Yeah.
it was great, but I didn't rewatch it.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just feel like I won't like it as much just rewatching it at home. And it doesn't really feel like a movie that I need to rewatch. But I still cherish that experience of seeing it in theaters because it was such a weird horror experience.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like I would have liked to see this in the theater because I was a bit distracted, and this was on Hulu again with ads. So
Oh no.
it was really, really jarring. Like it was like, watching this, like 20 minutes in, and then the guy from the Bear shows up and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna make an Italian beef sandwich."
Yeah.
It's like at some DoorDash commercial, just snuck in the middle of this like insanely slow film. So it's definitely like breaking me out of the vibe a
Yeah,
lot.
that's no good.
It was really bad. Yeah, I wish I would have saw it in the theater, but yeah, I mean, just like ENYS MEN, it is very challenging in that you're literally staring at a wall.
Or the ceiling,
Yeah.
or the
or the
floor.
or the floor. But if you do stick with it, like let your mind adapt to this series of imagery, when there is a shift in it, like when you get the perspective of standing on the ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
your equilibrium is all off because you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep seeing these same things over and over. But then when there is a change in it, it definitely kind of takes you out of that comfort zone because you're trying to find some semblance of comfort or understanding in the film. And then when it subverts it again, you are once again unsettled.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real soundtrack in this movie. There's no music per se.
Yeah, it's all diegetic kind of sounds. You do get the sound of the TV playing like cartoons, and you get cartoon music in there. I
Right.
think you do hear like the SkinaMARINK song kind of
Mm-hmm.
playing from like an old cartoon. And I really like that whole aesthetic of just like these really old, like kind of like cartoons you might see from like the 40s or something. Got these old ass cartoons, and you got like Legos and some familiar like toys that you might remember from being a 90s kid,
Right.
like that creepy phone car
Yeah.
with the big eyes.
Yes.
That's like my favorite part of the movie is that jump scare with that thing, and then like its
Yeah.
eyes like shift, and then like it
Yeah.
starts ringing. That I remember that rattled me to the core when I saw it. But just
Yeah.
watching it on like YouTube, it's like funny. But when you're in the
Mhm.
movie, it's like it feels like pretty scary.
I think I did have that toy. But yeah, another comparison is 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think that if you look at the last couple frames or the last scene of 2001 where he's in the kind of alien space house, whatever you want to call it, and it's just like kind of these shots of like a long corridor or like a bed or a room. um I know Kyle said he specifically, I mean, that is his favorite movie, and that like he was specifically referencing that. So you can definitely feel that in this film.
Yeah, there's actually an interview where it's like Kyle Edward Ball talking with the ENYS Men director,
Right. Yeah.
and yeah, they're just they're talking about each other's movies. They're talking about ENYS Men. They're talking about SkinaMARINK, and yeah. Kyle mentions 2001 being a big inspiration for the movie, which I didn't think about when I was watching the movie, but I definitely could see it after he mentioned it.
Yeah, and it's funny because when we were thinking about doing this episode for ENYS Men, we were like, well, we could do SkinaMARINK too. It's probably the same kind of thing. And then turns out they thought so too.
Yeah, and there's like Letterboxd reviews of ENYS Men, like, oh, this is like SkinaMARINK on an island. A lot of other people are drawing the comparison as well, just because there's not a lot going on in these movies, but I think I do prefer SkinaMARINK just because it actually does feel horror to me, and it actually did freak me out, especially the ending where you kind of like see like this entity's face a little bit, like through the fuzz and the grain. That shot kind of really stuck with me, and it's like, all right, that was a good movie. They pulled it off. all I needed was like a shot like that, and it's like, all right, this movie did its job.
Yeah, it's very haunting. Again, very creepypasta. Like if you see any of those images, like the classic creepypasta images, the Slender Man, or like there's like Smile Dog, all these things like where it's just like these kind of grainy, fuzzy, like very disturbing images. Yeah, they're just meant to unsettle you. And this movie, I feel like, is also in the vein of Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, in that they were shot on these shoestring budgets. I think SkinaMARINK was a $15,000 budget.
Yeah,
and
which feels like kind of high. It feels like it should have like zero budget.
I know, right? Yeah,
I don't know what they spent the money on. I guess just paying the actors, paying the children. I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't he say like they only shot it in like 7 days too? Like,
yeah, I know that they shot all the kids' scenes and all their audio in one day. I think that the premise of the movie is kids in a house and their parents are gone and all the doors and windows disappear. So there's a lot of like shots of like doors popping in and out, windows popping in and out.
Even a toilet pops in and out too.
Yeah, toilets popping in and out. And I love the way that the kids sound. I mean, like the kids are whispering the whole movie. It's very creepy.
Yeah, and they got subtitles too, which I like. That kind of gives you something to hold on to. It's like, oh, at least we're getting subtitles.
Yeah,
so you kind of get a better understanding of what's happening.
Yeah, and it's like, put the knife in your eye.
Yeah, that's like what like this like dark entity SkinaMARINK Force says, I think, and he kind of has like an even creepier, whispery voice. Did you watch it at night though?
Well, I tried to watch it at night and then I immediately fell asleep. But I watched it yesterday morning and it was like a dark and rainy morning, so it worked out.
Okay.
And I actually watched this movie and ENYS Men and another movie that we might talk about, Men, back to back to back, all yesterday morning. So
3 movies in a row.
Yeah. It was a very strange and overwhelming experience.
Wait, what was the order that you watched them in?
I watched SkinaMARINK first, and then I watched like half of Men, like basically the last 30 minutes of Men, because I'd already seen it. And then I watched ENYS Men all the way through.
Nice.
Definitely fried my brain a bit. I was also thinking of Eraserhead when I was watching SkinaMARINK.
David Lynch's first feature movie.
Yes.
It's a classic.
Similar kind of graininess, nonlinear stuff, unexplained, experimental. I mean, like, I feel like it's the next step in evolution with like, Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, SkinaMARINK. I feel like SkinaMARINK is like breaking it down to its like most essential the atoms of these movies. You know, it's just like literally it's all about film grain and whispering and this kind of security cam footage that Paranormal Activity coined in the horror world, I would say. I feel like it's taking all of those elements, but just like breaking them down to like their absolute elements.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like it just because if you're smoking weed before going to see a movie, plot can, it could be a hindrance into your enjoyment because,
Right.
your mind drifts because you're high and stuff like that. But SkinaMARINK, I was having such a great time just letting my mind drift while I was watching the movie. And then
Right.
like something will pull me back in. But
Mhm.
I just liked it as something to like be watching and listening to, like while my mind just like kind of drifted and like thought about random shit. And I think it's a great movie for that if you're into that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the director of ENYS Men talks about when he's talking to Kyle Edward Ball the idea of how he doesn't really love movies that are like got tons of plot, and he's more about the vibes.
Yeah, they talk a lot about how movies should be felt. That like movies should feel like music, which feels a little pretentious to me. Like I feel like there's something about both of these movies where they're challenging the audience in a way where it's like, can you handle my genius? It's like, I don't know. It's just a little arrogant, I feel like. But then again, they're trying something new and, they're coming up against a lot of commercial shit out there. And so,
Felt like maybe the pretentiousness thing a little bit more with ENYS Men
yes.
than SkinaMARINK.
Right.
SkinaMARINK just felt like somebody wanting to make like a feature length horror movie, but like just with the most minimal kind of means and
Right.
trying to do it as simply as possible, which, I find admirable as someone who makes cheap movies and low budget YouTube bullshit. I don't know what the budget on ENYS Men was, but that also seems like a very low budget affair as well.
Yeah. Super low budget. And they also were they were very conscious about their carbon footprint. Any sort of like greenhouse gases that they created by making this movie, they tried to offset in some way. So they were very like environmentally conscious making this movie as well.
That's good. Like to hear
Mhm.
that.
Going back to like the arrogance thing, like just listen to Kyle Edward Ball's introduction to his film.
Hello, Torino. You are about to see my first feature-length film, SkinaMARINK. I cannot guarantee that you are going to love this film. What I can guarantee is this. When the film is over and you go home, go to bed, and turn off the lights, I guarantee you are going to have a difficult time falling asleep. Guaranteed. Thank you. Grazie.
Grazie.
I fell asleep just fine last night. Did you have a hard time sleeping?
um, yeah, I think I fell asleep fine. That was a while ago, but I think I had a fine time going to sleep.
Yeah. It feels a little pretentious. And it is interesting that ENYS Men and SkinaMARINK both sort of taking cues from the 70s, like with their titles, especially with like adding the little like copyright line in the very beginning and stuff like that. Like they do feel like a really good pairing. Like they are like two modern ambient experimental horror films that really play off of each other.
I did like ENYS Men. I like the vibe they're going for, and I love the location. And I'm pretty easy as a moviegoer. If you give me a good looking movie with an aesthetic I like, then I'm there, and
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much all this movie offers. So I didn't have too much to complain, but yeah, I do. I was hoping for a little bit more of a satisfying ending. But
Yeah.
the ending didn't really give me much with ENYS Men, but I did feel satisfied by the ending of SkinaMARINK, and that's kind of maybe the
Yeah.
big difference.
Yeah. You at least get to kind of see the monster at the end of SkinaMARINK, and they have those images of like the kids with like disappeared heads that are strange.
And you get some blood spurting, so that's like
Yeah.
some classic horror, but you don't like see like the kids like getting injured at all. It's all just like implied, and there's like some
Mhm.
weird time loop stuff happening in it, which I all thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I will say though that Mark Jenkin definitely knows how to work a Bolex camera, which is not easy. I would say not any dumbass can work a Bolex camera, so I'll give him some credit there. And
yeah, and they both edited these movies too. They filmed, directed, and edited the movies, which that's how I usually make my movies too. So I always appreciate someone that takes on the
Mhm.
multiple roles there.
Yeah,
Is the Bolex camera like the one that you kind of crank?
yeah, it's like the clockwork, yeah, cranked one, and they only shoot in like 27-second increments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you have to be very diligent and intentional with everything.
Does make me want to make a movie where it's like all like as they're saying they don't do sync sound, where they do all the audio in post, which maybe
Mhm.
that's what Banus will be. Uh, but
Possible.
yeah, them talking about that process with each other is like, yeah, it is nice to not have to worry about sound at all when you're filming, because sound is really hard to capture, and there's so many noises that you don't want. So being
Mhm.
able to like curate exactly the sounds you want to be hearing after the fact and the dialogue after the fact is kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, but that definitely poses its own challenges too, to like recreate all the sound in post, all the atmosphere, all the dialogue, any little sound effect needs to be created from scratch. So that can be difficult as well.
But you can also just find shit off the internet. No one's gonna know.
So do we want to talk about another film? Do we still want to integrate men into this conversation?
Well, I did watch Men and I took notes on it, so I thought, heck, why not? And I feel like there are some connections to be made between Men and these movies.
A man followed me out of the woods. He was stalking me.
What makes you say that?
I saw him twice.
Twice. I don't know if he saw you once.
Want to play a game? You hide, I'll see.
You must feel an awful sense of guilt.
Stay away from me.
Men was a movie that really surprised me from last year, 2022. So we're still in the same kind of range of time. And this movie is directed by Alex Garland, who you may have seen Ex Machina or Annihilation. He did those movies.
Yeah, he also wrote 28 Days Later and Sunshine, Danny Boyle collaborator.
Yeah. And so this movie is definitely more narrative than the other two films that we talked about, but still does contain some ambient horror elements. There is a lot of the main character kind of walking around a forest and sort of.
Yeah, just a woman walking around in nature set to ethereal music definitely reminded me of ENYS Men.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very simple, but yeah, similarly looks really good. I think this is a very well shot movie. The colors really pop, just like ENYS Men.
Mm-hmm.
This time again, it's more green and red colors than the red and blue you get in ENYS Men, but I was really noticing that in this movie. But yeah, it is ambiguous in its way and strange in its way that SkinaMARINK and ENYS Men are. But yeah, you're definitely getting more characters, more dialogue. So there's a little bit more to hold on to in this movie.
This movie does deal with repetition in a different way, in which we see the same actor playing different roles over and
Right.
over. And it's interesting because the main character never acknowledges that fact that
Yeah.
that all of the men, see title, in this movie are played by Rory Kinnear,
Yeah.
who I think does a really good job
Yeah, he's great.
doing a range of characters. The only other man in this movie is her ex. And so the movie basically deals with trauma, which is what we can assume from the information given to us in the film is her and her partner are getting a divorce, and he commits suicide by jumping off a balcony.
Yeah, and he says like, I'm gonna kill myself if you divorce me.
Yeah.
And yeah, he like hits her. This is all seen through flashbacks that are sprinkled throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do see him kind of like falling. She like makes eye contact with him as he's falling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it does seem like he killed himself.
That's the implication. And the movie is basically her going to an English countryside. So again, there's a little bit of an ENYS MEN connection there.
Got to mention that both movies have men in the title. That's what made me think about it.
Yes, can't overlook that.
We're just like gonna do ENYS MEN, and then I think you threw out the day like, well, maybe we could throw SkinaMARINK in there too.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, well, maybe we could do men as well.
Yeah,
because they got men right there in the title, and so that's how we ended up with this deranged episode.
Yeah, but I think Men is much different, I think, in tone, in that again there is dialogue, there is like some sort of driving plot, there is a storyline behind this. I mean, and I think it is experimental in a way because you are kind of just like flowing with this woman in nature. It's not directly told you exactly what happens in her past, and then you have this element of the actor playing all these different roles and the main character never acknowledging the fact that everybody looks the same. So you don't really know what is her reality. Like, why does she see everybody as the same person, or why doesn't she see that everybody is the same person?
Yeah, just never comments on that fact. Yeah, and there's also the connection that because there's like a priest character in
Yes.
ENYS MEN, and then there's also the priest in Men.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's just a lot of symbolic imagery in both movies
Yes.
that can kind of be like pondered about.
Again, much like ENYS MEN is about, in a way, like nature and plants and flora and fauna. So one of the characters that Rory Kinnear plays that sort of haunts and stalks the main character is this guy who is based off of a pagan symbol of what's called the Green Man.
Mm-hmm.
So like you may see him on reliefs on architecture where it's a symbol of a man with leaves coming out of his face. So there's kind of a personified version of the Green Man in this movie, who like cuts his forehead open in like these really kind of gruesome ways and like plants leaves in his head.
Yeah.
And eventually in the movie, the Green Man appears with like full foliage across his face, deep green leaves,
mm-hmm.
and branches kind of coming out of his face.
Yeah, I like the Green Man in this. He's a cool aspect of it for sure. And I was reading, I guess the Green Man, it's like a symbol of rebirth. You know, kind of like the springtime, everything grows again. And I guess that's kind of like a rebirth for a character by the end of the movie.
Well, this movie has the absolute fucking craziest ending I've seen in a long, long time. When I saw this in the theater last year, I was absolutely fucking stunned by this ending.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that last year, and I was like, how crazy could the Men ending be? What are you talking about, Austin? But yeah, watching it the other day, I was like, holy shit. It's really good. I was not expecting because like it feels like some proper horror imagery. It fucking rules.
Yeah, I definitely think that this ending deserves a spoiler alert, because if you haven't seen this, nothing can prepare you for what you're about to see.
Yeah, it's definitely the most impressive, like kind of body horror things I've seen in any movie, which totally took me aback because I was like, I didn't think this movie would go that down that path at all.
No, no, yeah, me either. It's quite shocking.
And it kind of sold me on the movie though. I was like, this movie's good now.
Yeah.
So I was like on the fence before that. Yeah.
Yeah, because up until that point, if you've seen the trailer, you've basically seen the movie up until that point. So there wasn't anything really surprising up until that ending, which was like the biggest surprise of the year for me. So like, yeah, the Green Man is stalking her, and
Well, that's
before
kind
this,
of a pun. The Green Man stalking. Stalk.
good call, good call. But like in this last 30 minutes, the Green Man is like reaching for her through the mailbox slot, and she stabs him in the arm. And then he pulls the knife through his arm out the middle of his fingers, like from the mailbox slot.
Yeah, just slowly drags it through the blade.
Oh my God. It's like nails on a chalkboard watching that. It's just like slowly just dragging through it and cutting his arm in half.
But not only that, the rest of the movie, like anytime you see these guys, they're like their hand is just like in half in this bizarre looking way, just like dangling floppy half. I don't know. It looks really creepy and cool. I really liked it.
Yeah, it looks so messed up. From there, we kind of get reintroduced to all of the characters who Roy Kinnear is playing, and like they all have the split arm.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tries to escape, but one of the characters takes the car, blah, 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 comes back. The Green Man is creeping up on her, and then slowly his like stomach starts to enlarge.
Yeah, balloon.
Like a big balloon. And he falls over and births like in a very graphic vaginal yonic.
Yeah, he has a vagina all of a sudden.
Yeah, which is also a pagan symbol of this this pagan symbol, Sheila Nagig.
Yeah, there's like a statue of that and like the Green Man in this church that she visits in this movie.
Yeah. But anyways, the Green Man births the boy in this movie, who is also played by Rory Kinnear, like in a deep fake way. Like they have this boy in the movie that has like Rory Kinnear's face in a deep fake thing, which like doesn't look real, but it's
kind of works.
Yeah, it's fucked up enough that it works. So then the boy his stomach starts to balloon out. Yeah. And there's this very disturbing image of the little boy with like this giant stomach just like screaming, and then he births one of the other characters. and then that character has a vagina in his back and births another character out of his back.
This is all true.
And then once again but this last one is really fucked up, because he births the last person out his mouth. So the first thing you see are like these toes coming out this guy's mouth.
Yeah, feet forward coming out of his mouth. Well, the last guy is her ex-husband, right?
Right. Yes.
It's no longer Rory Kinnear. It's her ex-husband, and they sit on the couch together. He's all slimy and covered with placenta and sits on the couch. And she's like, "What do you want, James?" And he's like, "Your love." And she's like, "Yeah." And then that's like the end of that scene.
Well, it's the end of the movie, basically.
Well, there's also the scene afterwards where it's like the next day and her friend finally comes and like rescues her and sees there's like blood like all everywhere. like trailing inside the house, and she's like hanging out, like looking at a leaf or something.
I kind of wish it would have just ended with her just sitting there with her ex.
Yeah, that's definitely a more powerful image, but I guess the director's like, this feels like too dark. Maybe give her some sense of things are going to be okay for her or something. I don't know. She's escaping this nightmare reality that she's been in.
I guess. I mean, I don't know how you escape that after you see something. I mean, like, I don't think I've escaped that nightmare yet.
But she does look at peace at the end. She's like smiling and like looking at a leaf. She seems like she's like, all good now. I've purged the guilt. Yeah, people really don't like this movie, or it's very divisive. There's people hate this movie on Letterboxd, or I don't know. I only heard like bad things about it, kind of when it was coming out. Everyone was just kind of shitting on this movie, but I was kind of surprised that I thought it was pretty good. By the end of it, I was like, yeah, I don't see why people are so upset about it. Really, yeah. I mean, there's some things maybe I could see. I mean, I thought like kind of like the flashbacks, like with her ex-husband, like that like felt like pretty. Those scenes felt a little surface level, or it just felt like, I don't know, just like a very basic type of couple arguing kind of. It didn't feel very nuanced at all or that believable. It just felt kind of ridiculous.
It's definitely the driving force of the film, so it's you have to explain it somehow, but maybe you could have done it in a briefer, more brief way.
I mean, I do like the shot of like you actually see him like his like hand like cut, like his like the spike of the fence like through his hand, and like his like legs all fucking broken. So like that's a good horrifying image. I like that, and they're playing off that with what happens at the end with like how fucked up like the knife cutting thing. It's like seems like it relates to that. So I like that stuff, but yeah, just like the scenes of them fighting felt a little cringe or something. I don't know, but those are pretty short and makes up for a pretty small amount of the movie.
Yeah, I did like the cinematography of those scenes too, like kind of how everything is drenched in red. Definitely separates it from the rest of the film.
Yeah, it does seem like maybe people are just kind of fed up with this A24 like allegorical kind of horror movie where I don't know.
Yeah, all these movies are very divisive. ENYS MEN, SKINAMARINK, Men, they all kind of are very polarizing. People love them, people hate them, but you know, I think they all take you to a place that you don't normally go to, and so in that way, I think they're worth seeing.
I like these movies to varying degrees, but I liked all three of them. But I mean, I could see where people are coming from. If you don't have the patience for these kind of movies, that's fine.
And Men, the Green Man, reminded me of another film that we watched recently, The Odd Life of Timothy Green.
Which isn't a horror movie, but we watched this together as a family this past weekend.
Yep, I had a fresh DVD of The Odd Life of Timothy Green.
Where do you get the DVD?
I found it on the street. Literally, it was discarded in a stack of DVDs on the street, and I'd never seen it, and I was wanting to see it. I've heard a lot about it. And we cracked that baby open and we watched it together on DVD in the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
This seems like the beginning of a creepypasta. We saw something that we can't unsee. It's sort of similar to like, in a way, I feel like Men is the sequel to The Odd Life of Timothy Green. I think like this Green Man character could very well be Timothy all grown up.
Yeah, we'll say what the premise of Timothy Green is for people who don't know, because I didn't know about this movie when you presented it to us.
Yeah, so The Odd Life of Timothy Green, starring Jennifer Gardner, is a Disney film, came out in 2012, and basically it's about parents that can't have a kid. So one night they decide to kind of dream up their ideal child.
Tonight, let's have a kid.
You heard what the doctor said. Give it up.
There we go. Our kid would never give up. You know, that kind of kid that would be a glass half full person.
Picasso with a pencil.
Yes. Our kid would rock.
We so agree.
Just once, our kid got to score the winning goal.
And they all put those little notes into a box and they bury it in the backyard. And the next day, a boy grows from the ground. And the opening scene of them discovering this kid is very horrific. He's covered in mud and he's like kind of creeping around the house.
Yeah, like it happens at night and you like see like the dirt shifting, which it felt like a horror image for sure.
Yeah, like a zombie was about to like pop out. It's like very dark. It's lightning and rain and like this mud is like sort of like bubbling from the ground. And then they go into this room and there's like this boy covered in dirt like in the corner like, hey.
Honey, there's something you need to see.
Hi. Hi. Is he for us?
Mom, Dad.
I'm getting that feeling.
We were like, this is terrifying.
Well, there's the bit where he's like actually in bed with the husband.
Yeah,
like he's like under the sheets, and then like the husband like comes up and like cuddles thinking that it's his wife, and like tries to kiss it, and then like it skitters away, and the Caesar's like left a big mess of dirt in the bed. And you're like, what the hell?
So then you discover that this boy has grown from the ground, and the defining feature of this boy is that he has like leaves on his legs.
Just like 6 leaves.
Just a few sparse leaves growing on his ankles. Like that they can't be cut off. Lin-Manuel Miranda makes an appearance as a botanist who tries to clip off Timothy's leaves, and they're like steel and break the scissors.
Yeah.
This movie is bizarre and should be a horror film because it could have been like a Megan type movie where it's like they create some monster and Timothy starts going on some kind of a rampage. Or I wish they would have like done a little bit more to make him look like a plant other than just have like 6 leaves attached to his ankles.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I was expecting him to be more plant-like. But I guess that would freak people out too much. So I was like, let's just throw a few leaves on there. It's funny because this movie is written by Ahmet Zappa, one of Frank Zappa's sons.
Right.
It's an interesting detail.
Yeah. So it does have a bizarre feel. Like you can imagine a Frank Zappa song about like the odd life of Timothy Green.
He does have a song called like the Mr. Uncle Green jeans or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, Timothy Green, he kind of sucks at everything. He's not good at soccer. He's not good at music. I mean, he's kind of good at drawing, but he may be a little too good at drawing.
Yeah.
As he's drawing someone's portrait and gives them a goatee kind of, because it's a woman that has like some hairs on her chin, and he really emphasized that in his portrait. And they're like, oh, Timothy.
Yeah. The Timothy Green cast is stacked. You got Joel Edgerton, Ron Livingston, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Diane Wiest.
Common.
Oh, yeah.
The soccer coach.
Yeah. Common.
Emmett Walsh. He's in Blood Simple, the first Coen Brothers movie. And he's also in the Toes episode of Tim and Eric's Bedtime Stories.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, I mean, lots of great actors in this movie, but not a great movie. It was a lot of fun to watch, though. I think it was like the perfect thing for us cousins to watch together as a family.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun movie to watch and make fun of because it's very dumb.
But yeah, I think it should have been a horror film. It
Yeah.
works better as a horror film, I think. We got to play the famous scene where Timothy is giving a concert of his musical abilities. And
Yeah. Yeah, the best part about this scene is a visual gesture, which you won't be able to get over the podcast, but it was something that it all struck us as very funny. The way that Joel Edgerton kind of reacts to this scene.
Back and enjoy the musical stylings of Timothy Green.
You know what? We're running late to something. Go ahead and do the encore because it's... No, Mom, it's okay. You know what?
It's fine, Mom.
Timothy? Hey.
It's okay.
Just kind of fucking around.
Just get him, baby. Just get him. Get him.
Hey, pal. Boom, 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 boom. All my friends know the low rider. Boom, boom, boom. Low rider is a little higher. Boom, 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 boom.
And apparently this weak ass performance saves the day. It's like, wow.
I mean, the only reason it seems like it's going okay is because they actually play the song underneath it.
Yeah.
Which in reality is not happening, but when you're watching the movie, it's like, oh, this is good now because the actual song's playing. But yeah, Joel Edgerton's reaction to Jennifer Gardner chiming in with the he just does this really funny double fist pump move that we were just miming to each other like the rest of the weekend. We just thought it was so funny.
A classic Disney film, an underrated and unsung hero of the Disney collection.
Perfect way to end our first horror episode of the month.
Yeah. So this was an odd life of Timothy Green.
Odd podcast.
This was an odd pod. We saw a bunch of weird scary movies, and we were like, we should talk about them on the pod. It'll be a great way to kick off spooky season. Just get your mind into that dreamlike terror state. We just want to mold your vulnerable minds now and take you into the dark depths of fear and terror.
I promise you, you'll have a hard time falling asleep after listening to this podcast. I guarantee it.
I guarantee it.
Should we rank these movies? Let's do our own ranking these 4 movies.
Sure.
I'll say Odd Life of Timothy Green. That's the bottom. It's the bottom of the barrel for me.
Okay.
And then from there I go ENYS Men. It's like a gentleman 6 out of 10 for me.
Gentleman 6.
Then I'd put Men, just Men, next. And then I put SkinaMARINK on top just because it really feels like a very unique horror movie that really worked for me in the theaters. I wouldn't recommend watching it on Hulu with ads though.
No.
During the day.
No. Yeah, no, I definitely
got screwed.
I got screwed for sure.
What's your ranking? Do you have it? Can you rank these movies real quick?
In terms of a scary movie, I would say Odd Life of Timothy Green, obviously on the bottom, because it's not a horror film at all, although it should be.
It was horrifying to realize that he scored an own goal in the soccer match, though.
And that he didn't know how to play any instruments. But yeah, the image of we'll post on the Instagram the image of Timothy Green with all the dirt on his face. He looks like the witch behind Winkies in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, just cowering.
It's terrifying, but doesn't count as a horror film. So, I'll put it at the bottom. Next, I'm going to say ENYS MEN, because again, I don't know if this is a horror film. I feel like it's just an experimental film that has some unsettling parts of it, but I wouldn't call it a horror film.
Yeah.
Second, I'm doing SkinaMARINK, because it is a horror film and it is scary, but not as scary as the ending of Men, which scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Even watching it for the second time yesterday, I still was absolutely mind blown by the gruesomeness of the knife splitting the arm in half, and then also just the crazy vaginal ending. the birth and rebirth and rebirth and rebirth and rebirth is fucking insane.
Yeah, maybe insane if it just happens once, the rebirth or the birthing thing, but it just like keeps repeating itself in like a new way. And I saw an interview with the director, Alex Garland, and he said an influence for that scene was the anime Attack on Titan.
Oh, right.
Because they have like these like weird Titan creatures in that show that are like kind of like fucked up in a similar way. And he said that was a big inspiration. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So that's my ranking.
All right. So yeah, we feel the same. We just flip on SkinaMARINK and Men.
If I had it my way, I'd put Timothy Green on top. This whole episode would be about Timothy Green if I had my way.
Do you have any more Timothy Green things you want to get off your chest before we go?
No.
No.
So, I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Horror Month on Film with Family. Woo.
If you like this podcast, make sure to subscribe and review us 5 stars. And also follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Film with Family.
And X.
That's where the devil lives. Devil lives on X.
And if you'd like to send us an email, you can send us an email at filmwithfamilypodcast@gmail.com. Tell us about your nightmares.
And if you want a real scare, follow me and Austin on Letterboxd to see what we're watching. zacharyzweifler and Austin C. Pruett are our handles.
We love the movies.
We love our family.
See you next time, if you dare.